Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Financing Islamic Businesses Focusing on Asia panel. I hope everyone is refreshed from your break and excited to be here with us. I'm T-Sing, the COO of Vibranium Consulting, and the moderator for this session. It's currently a given that Asia is a large growing region with exciting investment opportunities. With two-thirds of the Muslim population living in Asia, 25% of it just in Southeast Asia alone, there's similarly exciting opportunities to invest into Islamic businesses. Through this panel, we hope to highlight some of these exciting opportunities in investments, address some of the misconceptions, and also provide key areas to note when investing or seeking investments in this space. Today, we have three panelists who will be sharing their insights and thoughts with us today. Firstly, we have Muhammad Raj, founder and managing director of 5 Pillars. 5 Pillars is a Singapore-based advisory and consultancy firm that specializes in Islamic banking and finance, education, training, and structuring products that are Sharia compliant. Next, we have Fateh Ali, co-founder and CEO of Collabdeen. Collabdeen is a Singapore tech and new media startup building an AI-powered, privacy-focused social media platform which helps faith communities and business communities build the community audience on a single platform. And finally, we have Dima Jani, founder and CEO of Alami. Alami is an Indonesian P2P financing platform focusing on a Sharia-compliant invoice financing product for Indonesia's SMEs. Alami also helps individuals and companies to invest in a Sharia-compliant way to quality SMEs through user-friendly technology. So before we have our panelists share with us on their thoughts, we would like to have a short survey for our audiences. We'll give you a quick moment to answer it, and then we'll use this also as part of our discussion. The question here is basically, when you find out or when you realize that a business is actually an Islamic business, how do you perceive it? Does it change your perception? Positively, negatively, or does it not affect you? And of course, we want to know what your background is. So just give a quick poll that will close and we'll get some idea of this. You can just basically click and vote. Okay. Okay, let's close the polls right now, and let's take a look at what the results are. Quite a few people who are Muslims and they view it positively, and some which are basically not affected, which is good. So basically, we're seeing that most of the people voted not affected or in a positive manner. Okay, let me then now go on to start with the panelists. I'll let the panelists give a short introduction on themselves, as well as some of the initial thoughts they have on the topic. Raj, would you like to start?
Okay, well, first of all, I hope all of you can hear me. Thank you very much for the organizers for including us in this important panel. We're very pleased. I'll jump straight into it. I think Islamic finance came into the mainstream sometime in the late 90s when oil price shot up like 4 times. It was some $442 a barrel to 147, if I'm not wrong. And that immediately saw a huge amount of wealth being built up in the Middle East. And when Middle Eastern investors started looking for investment opportunities, they started asking for Islamic products. And that's when conventional money managers and banks immediately started looking into, and you will find all of them started having an Islamic version of their conventional what would I say, services. And that has given us a window of opportunity. And very simply put, Islamic finance has to be read in similar terms as what is now commonly known as ethical investment, as socially responsible investment, and including those of who are concerned with the environment. So all these are in line with Islamic finance. I will tell more about the pros and cons, the opportunities, and what are some of the misunderstood misconceptions. And we hopefully would like to demystify and present Islamic finance as a valuable opportunity for you to consider, either as an investor or as investee, and hopefully structure products that's would I say consumable by both Muslims and non-Muslims. Over to you, TC.
Thank you, Raj. Dima, why not share with us a little bit about yourself, as well as kind of the company that you're running, Alami, and how that journey has been in your fundraising.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me here. Sorry if the signals might be broken up over time. So my background was actually working in a conventional banking space. I was working at Citi for about 8 years, and then moved to Societe Generale for about 3 years, based in Indonesia. So after that, I've always had the passion to develop the Islamic finance industry. And actually, during 2015, where the peer-to-peer kind of wave starts to come to Indonesia, or kind of like trying to enter that market as well. But then I think at that time it was the conventional P2Ps that's actually getting investors' attention, because Islamic was seen as one of the vertical in P2P. So going into Islamic right away was pretty hard from the VC's perspective at that time. So we decided to come with the aggregator business model, whereby we just lead gen, becoming the lead gen for the Islamic banks for the SME. Apparently the Islamic banks in Indonesia were not ready at that time. So instead we actually pivoted at the end of 2018 to P2P business model. But at that time, once the industry is more matured, the VCs and investors are more open to see some sort of differentiation within the P2P space as well. Hence, I think it makes more sense for us from investability perspective. And well, I think since our operational starts about 2 years ago and until now, we have disbursed about 20 million US dollars to Indonesian SMEs for more than 1,000 transactions. And I think our learning so far is that there are some positive, and I tend to agree with the survey. There are some positive elements on bringing up the Islamic identity, either to our clients, our investors, as well as our team. I'm happy to share more details on subsequent questions, but I guess that's kind of the summary of that. Thank you, Tiseng.
Thanks. Now, Fateh, well, we had Dima talk about kind of the technology in the fintech space. Well, I know you are in a tech company too, and you have started building communities as to support kind of giving as well as businesses. Why not you give us some thoughts about how kind of technology as well as investments are coming into play in your area?
Sure, thanks, Tiseng. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Fateh, co-founder of Collabdine. I come from a technology background, work for Fidelity Investments and JP Morgan. I founded Collabdine, which is headquartered in Singapore. It's a community collaboration platform. It's very simple terms, but at a global level, it does a lot of complex technological product solutions. We are a team of productivity experts where we are revolutionizing the way how these communities organize themselves, share information and knowledge, and collaborate with their people. Collabdine helps you to create a passion-fueled community with a privately-owned community collaboration platform for almost every community. So our focus is to marry faith and lifestyle together on one platform. On one side, we give technology to the faith-based communities. There are about 19 million Muslim and Islamic centers who does not have technology, we give technology to them for their community collaboration. On the other hand, these lifestyle sector, the global Islamic economy, having those technological gaps, we're trying to fulfill with the same technology platform by giving a community collaboration solutions where communities are being formed for businesses. Now, what's going to happen is it's one single platform where faith and lifestyle coming together in one place, with building that ecosystem where the whole collaboration, where brands, businesses, and influencers have somebody to talk to these faith-based communities as in the user base. So our mission is to really digitalize the human interactions in the global Islamic economy space, and we are trying to transform halal through technology.
Thank you, Fateh. Raj, we have been talking about the kind of the elephant in the room for a while, which is perception, misconceptions when it comes to investing into Islamic businesses versus sustainable and responsible investments. Why give us your view on that?
You know what? My journey. I'm actually a accidental Islamic finance individual. I used to work for conventional banks most part of my life in risk management, and then I spent some time with Bloomberg. And being the single senior salesperson in Bloomberg, I was given the task to develop the Islamic finance portal on the Bloomberg. And that's when I started talking to people whom I initially thought were experts in Islamic finance, were not able to clearly explain to me the benefits of Islamic finance. And then I said, well, it can't be that difficult. And then I started reading up more, and then I found a huge opportunity. Now, typically when you ask anyone about what is Islamic finance, and most of the time you will get a response of telling you a list of activities that you cannot indulge in. So they would tell you that you cannot participate in anything that has element of usury or interest. And then you cannot go into certain so-called sin industry, be it the gambling, be it the alcohol, beverages, and those kind of industries, right? But if you look at the true fact of it, there are just about a whole lot of other industries that investors can participate, and we can call it Islamic finance. So basically, we started defining Islamic finance as anything that is permissible except when it does harm to an individual, be it physically, morally, or socially, or to the community or environment, is deemed as impermissible. So the rest of the other things are absolutely permissible. And in fact, some of my scholars who sit in my panel reiterated the fact that Islamic finance is an enabler of business, right? It enables businesses, and it's so pro-business. So much so, in our religious scriptures, which is known as the Quran, you will find so many verses that talks about doing business ethically. So it promotes business. It promotes trading. So that's where we are. And so Islamic finance should be sold as something that is done morally, ethically viable. Now, I like to reiterate this fact with a very simple experience I had. We were in a conference, and then you may have heard about the term that in Malaysia, the number of people who subscribe to Islamic finance is more non-Muslims are participating in it rather than the Muslims. In Malaysia, over 23 million people, there are 60-odd Muslims, 60% odd Muslims. So they find that when they have an Islamic financial product, the subscription has to be surprisingly be the non-Muslim majority. So obviously the next question is, why is that so? And then the panelists told me, oh, they like the fact that Islamic finance, it's transparent, it's accountability, and they does things that everything that's what would I say, done ethically. And then I raised the hand and I said, shouldn't every business be? Why only Islamic finance must be transparent and accountable? Shouldn't every business be transparent and accountable? right? So that's where we are, right? So compartmentalizing it and religionizing it unnecessarily, avoids more participants to participate in it. So our take is, I think the biggest what would I say, deficiency in the Islamic finance space is we lack good salespeople and we lack good bankers, right? I'll come to it why very quickly, because you do not see too much innovation and you do not see too much what I say, sophisticated products in the Islamic finance space yet. And the case in point is, you will find next to nothing in Islamic hedge funds. They are almost non-existent. There is no, in the fintech space, although it has gathered speed of late, but there hasn't been too much. There is no Islamic, algorithmic trading products. There are very few, even if there are very few Islamic, what would I say, fintech products. So we believe that the time is right now, and if we could go out and tell them and talk to them about nothing but just the benefits of Islamic finance, and I think we would be able to get a lot more of non-Muslim participants, and I think there'll be a good flow of funds going into in the Islamic finance products or services. I'll end with one last comment. If you find, if you look at the investment space lately, there has been certain terminologies that are appearing quite time and again. Tising mentioned it earlier about socially responsible investments, and then we have started having environmentally responsible investments, and we're having this, and we see that there is a desire, there is a need, there is even pressure from investors to go towards doing things ethically and without destroying the resources that we have. Thank you.
Now we're lucky to have Dima, who is one of the two fintech Sharia fintech companies and registered and licensed by Indonesia with us. So I'm sure he has something to say and share on this topic too, about innovations in this space and perceptions. Dima.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm listening to Raj earlier, and I can't help but smiling about all of these things, because I totally agree with him. I mean, before we enter this industry, and the Alami's mission is to revolutionize the Islamic finance industry starting from Indonesia. Whenever we see, I mean, most of the time, Islamic bankers here in Indonesia, when we ask, and especially those that we are hired for our sales team, one of the interview questions from me is that, can you explain the difference between Sharia finance and the conventional finance, and what's the benefit? And the first answer from them is, in Sharia finance, we use akad. I mean, come on, man. Like, nobody wants to hear that you use akad, And it confused even people, more people even so. So, I mean, we need to come up with a punchy line to describe this industry. Those who can also attract the millennials, because for them, the attention span right now is only 5 seconds, as long as your Instagram stories, right? So for us, it's as simple as beyond ESG. And this is also a conversation with one of the VCs that, hey, actually, like, there's new VCs coming up to us. He's an impact fund, and come up with tons of side letters stating that you have to be responsible, cannot finance alcohol, cannot finance tobacco. And when I take a look at that, it's like, dude, this is like really Sharia. We don't have any comment. Really? You are the first company that we don't have to go back and forth with this? Yeah. So, oh, that's awesome, And so basically Sharia is ESG. No, it's beyond ESG. We also have the fairness, the ta'awun, a lot of things beyond ESG. So I guess ESG would be the first step to introduce Sharia finance in a different way to market, especially those millennials who really concerned about all of these things. So I guess we need to have a massive branding. So I guess that's kind of, in addition to Rad's point. And I guess for your questions on innovation, you're right. I think we need to, as a startup, we need to make a baby step, like one step, but really deep, and then scale it to other things. So what we're trying to do in Alami is starting from the invoice financing product, because obviously, while the concept of Islamic finance is beautiful, Unfortunately, in many parts of the world, the industry has been run not up to the standard. So there are misperception in the market that Islamic finance is less Islamic than the conventional banks. Why is it more expensive? Why the NPL or NPF is high and all of these things, right? So unfortunately, now we need to kind of re-educate, and how to educate the market effectively is by performance. So the reason like why we enter SME influence financing is also we would like to start from the safest product that we can scale. So now if we look at Alami, even in comparison with other SME lending platform in Indonesia, we're about to catch up with their scale, but then our NPF, or what we measure here, the TKB 90, is still 0%. Our return is not as high as the conventionals, but then our funders are happy because first of all, we've offered fully Sharia compliance, which some of them might see some values in it, especially for Muslim. But non-Muslim also, we have a lot of numbers of those coming in because they see us as credible, accountable, as what Rad is saying, and it can be seen by the asset quality. So I guess we're trying to build a virtuous cycle to showcase the true concept. Obviously, in our R&D, we're trying to build the musharaka rather than revenue sharing. We're trying to do profit sharing, and all of these things are achievable through technology. So we're partnering up with ecosystem and IoT company to track the revenue and the cost and all of these things. So it's all under development. And we're trying to show that Islamic finance is the highest mode of finance. It's ethical, fair, and also credible and impactful as well. We build the social finance feature later on after the commercial features takes off. So I guess that's in brief from our side.
Thank you. Fatih, to you, the technology is always a kind of a leveler and something to actually bring communities together, bring services to your communities, like what you're trying to do as well, like what Dima is trying to do with the finance part. Would you be able to share with us a little bit more about how this part is helping businesses of yours being more fundable, more investable, and also you're reaching out to a bigger group of people so that it becomes a much larger business that is just more attractive?
Right, absolutely. Am I unmuted? Right.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think this is a very interesting question from my perspective. There is a saying, right? A community is much more than belonging to something, right? It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. Now, I'll throw a question to you. Make a guess how many million businesses, halal businesses, exist across the globe, right? There is no accurate data anywhere from a lot of surveys and understanding multiple different reports and understanding. We came up with an approximate of 250 million halal businesses globally. Now, what's happening is from the deep dive that we have done and understood why a lot of businesses are not even being recognized is from a perspective where we come as we are trying to see how we can help them uplift into whatever they do. For example, now say a halal business of selling hijabs or stools in Jakarta. I've spoken to a few of them at different occasions. Now they've been doing business only in that local geography. The only thing after a few years they could do is within that city limit, or they could expand to the country level. How many of those businesses has an easy potential to grow at a global level? Right, there is. So doing business is so easy these days. All it requires is that attempt. Now people are trying to find out how they could actually go global. Only solution they could find is social media like Facebook, Instagram, Google, and these people coming in trying to say, we will take your business globally, but you have to pay us that amount of money so that we can let your business get popularized in whichever region that you could. Now, keeping that thought process in mind, a lot of businesses have closed down. A lot of detailed discussions with different businesses at a global level. We understood that, especially going back to those businesses which had closed down in the last 1 or 2 years, the reason is the competition is too high on one side, and it really requires a huge amount of funding to make sure that visibility comes in. Now, these are the very common gaps at a very low level, right? All that this a sister who I spoke to in Jakarta, all that she needs is she wants to sell about 200 pieces of hijabs somewhere outside Indonesia. How easy it is for technology to make that inroads for them. So that is an approach. That is one hair from this friend, right? Which is a direction that we would like to pick up from Collabzine's perspective. Help to build communities for any kind of halal business on our platform, where they can actually build a very niche audience. And we are working out with a lot of faith-based communities across globally, where individual communities, faith-based communities, if they're open for an advertisement channel where anyone could advertise within that community, it's a win-win for both the business side as well as these communities, right? So a lot of things are happening more of a traditional way. There'll be posters and stickers that will be laid out into mosque and Islamic centers, but it's only local. So this thing we are disrupting at a global level with technology, right? So this is a huge task. Now, even businesses like us who are trying to go inroads, we have our own challenges, let alone these small businesses, right? Now, if you put down those barriers and put down into a pile of problems together, there are two reasons that we get to know. As one is the funding. That is where a lot of business, 80-90% of the businesses locked down or fade down just because they could really not go to the next level. On the other hand, these 10% of businesses who maybe kind of do something good, but again, they don't have that technological vision. They could not have, there could be various barriers, where one could be technological barriers, or it could be geographical barriers, or political barriers into different geographies. Now we are trying to see how these can be streamlined, and technologically this can be disrupted, with the industry 4.0 revolution that's coming in, AI, machine learning, blockchain, quantum computing, and augmented reality stuff that's coming in. Virtual reality, today we saw how Halal in Asia is trying to bring those gaps, bridge those gaps, right? So these technologies are part of the future. Now, a message to these businesses is trying to go outrage with this technological implementation, be part of that new generation of technologies to make sure they can take that leap and bounds to enrich further.
Right. Dima, back to you, right? When we talk about funding Islamic businesses, where you actually provide P2P loans to such SMEs in Indonesia. I'm sure a portion of them are Islamic businesses. What advice would you have in order to try to kind of maximize the chances of getting funded, or yeah?
Yeah, so I think for SMEs, right now our product is invoice financing, and we're going to roll out community financing, and our community financing will be mostly partnership with ecosystem players such as IoT or marketplace. So I guess at this moment, I think probably either for invoice financing, either get a customers that is repeatable, like big companies, obviously, then we can help you with your invoice financing, or you're specialized in one industry and get an ecosystem partner, like you're selling in the e-commerce, for example, it adds a chance to get the financing as well, because we're getting some of the feed from our partners to help our credit scoring as well. So it increase our risk appetite for that rather than go directly to SME based on cash flow. The other thing is also to use bookkeeping apps. And then can easily integrate as well. Going forward, we will add more products, such as the deposits products. So I think if you put your savings with us, obviously that we can see your cash flow, and we partner up or build our own bookkeeping apps, then it will be easier for us to determine whether we can give a loan or not. So I guess that would be my advice, but the general advice would be very cognizant with the bookkeeping and reconciliation with your cash, because I guess for SMEs, those are the key metrics to approach like a P2P. But typically they go into the ecosystem partners to make it easier. And I think in Indonesia, it's getting easier and easier for SME to obtain a loan because the P2P industry is, doing more partnerships with marketplace, with some communities as well. I think Pat has shared about communities. I think in Indonesia, while people think there are 220 million Muslims, but I think when you get into the details, it's really split into different communities and mazhab, or so sometimes if you go with these communities, you can enter that communities. There's a lot of complexities, and being on the ground, we're trying to navigate through that and really be close with community partners. So one of the community partners that we are in discussion with is Hijrah Fest. So they are one of the largest community for faith-based activities, and they usually throw a big not conference, but a festival every Ramadan, and can get up to 30 to 50,000 people in 3 days. A lot of celebrities, Ustad celebrities, and all of these Hijrah celebrities as well. So I guess that's like one way to create our awareness, especially to the millennials and this Hijrah crowd. So we're targeting this Hijrah segment actually. What we call Hijrah phenomenon in Indonesia is basically these millennials, senior millennials, especially those who just got married or just having a first child, and then they realize, oh, my life has been so bad. Now I have a child, I have new responsibility. Okay, let me relearn Islam. So these are, people who like to transform their life, and eventually it will hit their financial lifestyle as well. That's why the Wadiah account in Islamic banks has been trending over the last 2 years as well. And I think it's a very good business for Islamic banks as well. So, yeah.
Raj, now you come from more of the investment angle, right? And what advice would you give if investors come to you and says, I'm looking for Islamic businesses to invest in? What do I need to take note of? What would you tell them?
Interestingly, first and foremost, Islamic finance is not the silver bullet to bad investment. So let us be aware of that. But to put things into perspective, if you look at it, why is there a strong call for investors or anyone in the investment world to look at Islamic finance as an alternative to what's available under the conventional? If you look at the 2017-18 data, even 19 for that matter, you'll find that the conventional banks have paid penalties, capital penalties, and financial penalties into the tune of something between 10 to $50 billion, right? So, and why do somebody pay penalties? Because they have misbehaved, right? So there were issues of front running, where when they saw an investment opportunity, the bank would first participate in it, keep the cream of the profit before sharing it with their clients or offering it to your clients. So there has been a decay of what people believed. I mean, if you read the story of Wells Fargo, that's really baffling, So there has been a decay in what we call in some of the industries of the conventional markets. But what is Islamic finance strongly advocating? So, like I said, it is purely into transparency. It's very participatory. What is it against? It is against usurious principles. And we are slowly finding that, there has been a good number of interest coming from both the conventional side and also non-traditional, Muslim markets. Right? So my call to investors is to, do not, let's remove the perception that it is only for Muslims, number one. And number two, it is not, your investment decision is not dictated by the Islamic scholars, right? So let me say that very clearly one more time, because when we approached a fund manager once who wanted to offer Islamic fund, for example, right? So when they first approached us, their question to us was, we are afraid that our investment decisions will be overridden by your scholars, your Islamic scholars. The answer is no. So we find that most of the time, when there's opportunity, the biggest hurdle is one's own misconception. So number one, you think it's only for Muslims. No, it's not. You have to know Arabic terms. No, you don't have to. They are being dictated by Muslim scholars. No, they don't. They only give you a mandate. They'll only tell you that you just look at them like your compliance manager. So what does your compliance manager tells you? Here is the guideline. These are things that you're supposed to do. Please obey within that. And that's all. So if you breach it, conventional side, you pay a penalty. And similarly in the Islamic institutions, you do the same thing. So, but we find that if you make a comparison, but let you know, I cannot say that there has been no default of Islamic instruments at all. I can't say that because that's not true, right? And we are also in our nascent stage. Conventional finance has been around for close to 400 years. Although Islamic finance take their direction from scripture that's thousands of years, 1,442 years ago, we are only where we are in the last 3 to 4 decades, where it became serious. So we are in an absolutely growing space. But having said that, we benefit from the development of the conventional side. We are not starting from ground zero. So what we do, we look at conventional products, and then we will remove elements that are non-Islamic. So we don't have to start from, you know, from the very basic, you know, how do we structure a product? So very simply put, if I were to look at a leasing contract, for example, then I would look at elements that may contravene the Islamic principle. All right. So that's where we are going. But the biggest you know, opportunity that comes in is in the space that Dima and Fateh are in. The fintech space is absolutely amusing. And the cryptocurrency is another space that Islamic finance allows. But which coin is important? So we're not giving you a blanket, all cryptocurrencies are permissible. No. So just like in the stock market, where we look at certain stocks and look at their financials and say that, yes, we can invest in some of them and we can't. We use a similar screening process, and we tell you there are certain cryptocurrencies that are permissible that we can use. So we are, the good thing is that Islamic finance scholars and the world is moving at a good speed. And we today, I can safely tell you, have an alternative for almost every product that conventional throws at us. So Islamic finance has got that, and I would strongly advocate my non-Muslim friends to look at Islamic finance. Why? Very simply put, if you were to look at some of the, very quickly, the statistics, 2/3 of the Muslim population lives in Asia, right? And in Asia, Asia also has the largest number of under 40s, highest literacy numbers, and under 40s represent good social mobility and have got better disposable income in years to come. So if you were to have instruments, so they are tech savvy, they've got more disposable income, well-traveled, well-educated, all points towards, what would I say, opportunities that say that if you participate in today, you will reap good benefits from this demography. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. For our audience out there, you know, feel free that if you have any questions, just to note it down in the Q&A side. We'll try to spend maybe the last few minutes answering some of the questions you might have. But while you are typing that, I'll continue to throw it to Dima, where as an Islamic tech business, you have raised seed funding from investors who are, you know, not necessarily focused on Islamic businesses as a vertical. How, you know, maybe some advice on how you convince them to come with you. Has it been any different from, for example, when they share with you, any different from how they look at other companies and so on?
Sure. Well, I think if I can share with you, our philosophy is when we run this industry in Islamic finance, we have to be twice as smart as the fellow conventional finance, because first of all, we are pressured to grow. And obviously there are so many ways to grow, but then most of the times probably it's in the gray area, right? As an Islamic fintech, like we would like to push the Islamic values as well. So we need to be ethical, responsible, accountable, and everything. So we need to grow faster than the others by keeping the ethics and all of these things. So that's what we need to think more. So what we're trying to do is to see if there is any Islamic specific values that would be contribute positively to the business. So I agree that obviously Islamic elements of any business is not the silver bullet, and by standing by itself is not a recipe for success. But then if we can extract some of these values and then use it to our advantage for win-win solution, that might be the way to do it. So for example, as I said, our average returns to our retail lenders, what we call it funders, is about 15% per annum on average in IDR terms, while a lot of our competitors in conventional space within our stage of a company life cycle, pretty much offering about 18 to 20% per annum, right, for SME loan. So what we see that obviously, rationally thinking, like people would go to the conventional space, right? But then what we see interestingly is that we keep getting retail lenders coming in. In fact, our retention rate is consistently above 50% month on month, meaning that people come every month, even though they get lower returns. And we try to understand why. First of all, is the Sharia values that attracts them. Like this is fully Sharia compliant. But after that, it's just up to the service and product, especially on the NPL, right? The default rate is very low or next to nothing. So what they then see, being Muslim or non-Muslim, is that they started to perceive that, okay, Islamic is accountable, reputable, and then credible and everything. So this is what we're trying to bring. So so essentially we have potentially lower cost of funds compared to our competitors, and then still high retention rate. So this is like only like one value that make a position us differently than our competitors. So investor likes those kind of insights, right? Because executing that thing, it's not easy, and pretty much because P2P, there's so many in Indonesia. We have about 160 plus regulated by OJK. So they trying to find a player that have a differentiation, be it in the product or in the business and everything. So this is our challenge, to showcase that the Islamic angle, it can actually boost profitability. That's one. And second is for talent. I guess for talent, it's very interesting. We keep getting reverse inquiry actually from some of the largest companies. In fact, we're hiring Gojek's lead product manager from one of the vertical to become our head of product, because he also wants to do hijrah. He wants to support the Islamic economy. We're talking also with some the largest P2P, and one of the first RM there wants to come to us because he just relearned Islam hijrah as well. And then so we've been getting like these top talents that interested to come to us, because they also see that the Alam's vision to revolutionize the Sharia is actually the same with them. So I guess investor like that as well, obviously, yes, because at the end of the day, startup is there. So I guess that's kind of what differentiates us.
Thank you, Dima. I think that was insightful and I would like to thank, we have run out of time, so I'd like to thank all three panelists for your time and your insights and sharing with us more about financing Islamic businesses, both from the investor side, the investee side, and the business side, as well as on the technology angle. I think this will be can be a continuing discussion going forward among all the participants and also among ourselves, how to continue growing this space. Thank you very much for all your time, and have a good rest of the session.